Welcome to Leafy Paints. In this video, I'll be showing you how I painted these 5 alien egg bases in a variety of colours, just to mix up the end result. Let's crack in. For the flat part of the base, I've made this out of clay. Here's a link to a video how I did that. For the pipes and the eggs on the base, I 3D printed these. I'll put a link in the description below where you can get these files. I use super glue to glue the pipes and the eggs into place. To tie the eggs with the base a bit better, I've gone with dollar store clay. Tore myself off a little piece here, wrapped it around the base of the egg, and using my finger I've just smoothed the clay, joining the egg and the base together. And with my toothpick I've just shaped the clay into tendrils and just tried to follow the general pattern of the egg. Once this was done, I let the clay dry for a couple of hours, and with this they're ready for paint. Before painting, I've undercoated the models. These are done with brush on primer from the Amyu Painter. For all the silver on the bases, I've gone with Leadbelcher from Citadel. This is painted straight out of the pot. I wasn't worried about getting this paint on the eggs, as I can touch up the paint later on. Once the Leadbelcher had fully dried, I gave all the metal areas a wash of Nuln Oil from Citadel. While this was still wet, I then went over to Agrax Earthshade, also from Citadel, and with this wash I just placed it in a couple of areas, letting it bleed into the Nuln Oil and mix together nicely. This will give the base a little bit more colour, having the black and the brown together. With the washes fully dried, now it's time to give the bases a dry brush. I've done this using the Leadbelcher again. Dry brushing is super easy. You just get a little bit of the paint onto your brush, wiping most of it off. And to apply it to the model, you just simply go back and forward over the model, lightly brushing it over the top. This will pick out all the raised areas, lightening them up, and leave all the recesses nice and dark. Now it's time to paint the eggs. I've gone with 5 different colours here. These were all applied straight to the pot with 2 coats, except for the final egg, which is a contrast paint. This was applied with 1 coat. This first colour here is Blue Violet from Vallejo. Next we've got Goblin Green from the Amyu Painter. And the last 3 eggs are all painted with Citadel paints. These are Abbadon Black, Celestra Grey, and contrast paint, Flesh Terrors Red. With the contrast paint, I went straight over the undercoat, but in the future, if I was going to do it again, I'd go to a standard red like Photon or Khorne Red. With all the base coats down, now it's time to give each egg a wash. All these washes are applied straight from the pot and just with 1 coat. The only egg I didn't put a wash over was the red one, as the contrast paint I applied done this for me. So going through all the colours, this first wash here is purple tone over the blue violet. Over the Abbadon Black, I've gone with the Nuln Oil from Citadel. Over the Celestra Grey, I've gone with Agrax Earthshade from Citadel. And finally, over the Goblin Green, I've gone with Green Tone from the Amyu Painter. With the washes down and fully dry, now it's time to dry brush the eggs again to bring out all the details. To do this, I gave each of the colours a dry brush of the base coat I used, with a tiny little bit of white mixed in. Went over the entire egg with this mix, and for a second pass I added a little bit more white to the paint to lighten it up further, and again just dry brushed it lightly over the model again. For the red egg, this was a little bit different. Because I used a contrast paint, I couldn't dry brush that on. So the first pass here I changed over to Khorne Red from Citadel, dry brushed it with this colour. And then for the second pass I added a little bit of white to the Khorne Red, and then just dry brushed it again with this mix. Due to the black egg being open and the interior of the egg being exposed, I wanted to paint this fleshy area a different colour. So I've gone with tan flesh from the Amyu Painter as a base coat. I've applied 2 coats of this colour into this area. Once the tan flesh had fully dried, I gave the area a wash with Agrax Earthshade from Citadel. Once that was dry, I've gone with pure matte white from the Amyu Painter and just carefully painted on some of these lines just to represent some sinew or veins onto the egg. With that white down, it looks a bit plain, so I've gone over to Blue Violet from Vallejo. Using this colour, I've just followed all the white areas, applying a thinner line of this colour, so the white still stands out, and this will represent some sort of, again, vein or sinew on the model. With those lines painted in, now I've gone back to the Agrax Earthshade. I've made a 50-50 mix of this paint and water, given it a wash, waited for that to dry, and then applied a second wash to the inside. The reason to wash it like this is to blend in the white a little bit better by dulling it down. Because I've painted these eggs very basically and quickly, I just found they were lacking something. So I've gone over to Poisonous Cloud from the Amyu Painter. I've made a 50-50 mix of this colour and water. And with this wash, I've run it around the bottom parts of the egg and the top cross section of each egg. Let it dry fully and then reapplied, and I've done this 3 to 4 times on each egg. The reason for doing so many coats is due to mixing a little bit of water into the paint. I lost a bit of the brightness of the colour. So these extra coats will help the paint brighten back up to its normal colour. With the black egg, I've painted it in the exact same way as the rest, but because it's open, it doesn't have the cross section, I've decided to put some of the paint on the sides, so it's coming out of the top of the egg and leaking down to the bottom. To paint all the rims of the bases, I've gone with Abbadon Black from Citadel, painted this straight from the pot and given each rim 2 coats of the colour. The final step to painting the eggs was to give them a slimy and wet look. This was achieved with Gloss Varnish from the Amyu Painter. I've just simply applied 2 coats of the Gloss Varnish to each of the eggs, letting the first dry before applying the second. With the gloss applied, the bases are pretty much finished. But for this open egg, I wanted to add a little bit of an extra touch. To get a slime effect on this egg, most people would use Yoo-hoo glue. Where I'm living, I can't get it, and to import it, it costs an arm and a leg. So after some digging, I found this craft adhesive. The difference between this glue and Yoo-hoo is with the Yoo-hoo glue, I've seen people use it straight out of the tube. To get that stringy effect with this glue, you have to let it dry a little bit. So I've placed a little bit down on my cutting mat, just let it sit here for a minute, and then just slowly with a toothpick, just mix it around until I get that stringy consistency I'm looking for. How to know it's ready? I just use my toothpick to gather some of the glue and lift it up. If it sticks to the cutting mat and the toothpick without breaking, then I know I'm pretty much good to go. And to apply this to the model, I just gather a little bit onto the end of my toothpick, put a dot where I want it to start, and then just pull it across to the opposite side. And I kept repeating this process until I was happy with the amount of slime I had on the model. This should have been done when I painted the silver earlier, but after looking into the bases at the end, they were super boring to me. So I've got out Balthasar Gold from Citadel, picked out a few areas on some of the bases, painted this colour on, let it dry, and then washed it with Agrax Earthshade. And with that, the bases are done and ready to be mounted with the model. Laying dormant upon an unknown world, the eggs are beginning to hatch. Thanks for watching Navy Paints. If you liked the video, please click the sub button and leave me a like. If there's anything you want to see in a future video, please leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Catch ya.